Alrighty, hello to the jury. We are here to do jury roundtable, in which we are going to talk about the final two, which we now know is Stoner and Jester. This is a chance for you all to share your thoughts in an open space about what you think of the final two, and the pros and cons, strengths and weaknesses of their games. Again, just a reminder, we're going to keep this respectful throughout, regardless. We're not going to talk over each other. If at any point there gets a point where like anyone feels that they're not able to share enough or that they're feeling talked over, I will mute everybody and I will let you go one at a time, which is very classroom-like, and I know you guys don't want to do that. So just remember to stay respectful and not talk over one another and give everyone equal chance to talk and give their opinions. In addition, keeping things game and not going into personal realm at all. But of course, you can talk about anything that has happened within the span of these past 37 days in regards to the final two and, why they deserve or don't deserve to win this game. Any questions before we get started?
Why are you so beautiful?
Because my mama has good genes.
She got it from her mama.
Were they Levi's? Sorry. Really bad.
Do we have any other questions?
No.
Are you going to structure it, or you just want us to talk?
I'm going to structure it. So the way we're going to structure it is we're going to talk about each of the three aspects of the game, as you all know, and we're going to talk about each of the two finalists in terms of those aspects of the game. And then, of course, after that, if there's more you guys want to talk about, that's fine too. We'll let this last as long as, you all want to have a discussion for. So with that being said, let's get into it. First, we're going to talk about the social game, the social aspect of their games. So for Stoner and Jester, whichever you guys want to start with. Should I random.org it, actually?
Yeah.
I know.
I'm going to random.org it so we're not being...
I think we should go like one at a time, honestly.
Yeah, that works for me. Just
Alrighty, Jester first. So let's first talk about Jester in terms of social games. So whoever wants to pipe in first, and we'll just popcorn from there, basically.
I think Jester did well of integrating himself socially with people and integrating himself socially with people that were bigger targets than him. So he could like hide behind them and therefore was never seen as a big threat going forward. He did well socially on Saida, which is a big reason why he made it off Saida, because he was swap screwed. And I think if he had made no effort there and didn't have a good social game, he wouldn't have made it off there, in all honesty. So I do think he has played well socially and has positioned himself well because of his social game.
I personally think you can't make it to the end without a social game. Like, there is no way, unless you are being dragged by the hairs on your chin to the end. And I don't necessarily think Jester was by any means dragged to the end. I think that he definitely had a social game and a game that was good enough to get to the end.
Go ahead, Kennedy.
Are you sure? You could go.
Ladies first. Kennedy, go ahead.
Okay. I'm also going to say, just on behalf of everyone, but call my ass out if I'm talking on behalf of you and you don't like it. We're talking about each of these players as players, not necessarily people. So just remember that if we say anything and it's like, wow, at this instant, I'm talking about Jester as a player. I do not. Yeah. Just because I think that's important to remember. This is a game. We need to respect them as players. I think that Jester's social game was a lot better than I'm willing to give him credit for, or I was at least in the game. Now I'm going to give him credit for it because he was always... Can you hear my Skype notifications? Okay, I'll put do not disturb on. Sorry, I'm in a game that has a live night tonight. So Jester was always in DMs like, oh my god, hey girl, like how are you? Always had very positive energy and good vibes and tried to make those connections. So Jester, one of the first things Jester talked to me about was the fact that we're both Asian, and Jester was like, we or like loves the Asian representation in the season. that was like how Jester worded it, is how good the Asian representation is in this season. And I thought that was cool because it means that it was something that Jester specifically learned about me or talked to about me, because I didn't go to Jester and say, oh my gosh, we're like minorities, because that's not something that I do, because I don't push that, because I don't feel that I properly represent that. But Jester tried to find a way to connect with me, and we had good conversations about things like that. And I think that's something Jester really focused on, was finding something to talk to each person about and connect with them. Maybe not everyone, but the people Jester connected with, Jester connected really strong, because Brian had a very similar connection. Brian gave me the extra vote because he felt like he couldn't vote out Jester. Now, obviously, he had no intention of doing that. That's not the point, though. It's because Jester had such a big impact on Brian and such a good connection, and that really shows Jester's social game. Because even though it made sense to take out Jester because Jester was in a better position than a lot of us wanted to admit, we didn't necessarily want to, because there were good connections or there was always somebody else. If Jester's not doing anything for us, for anybody, if there was no social game, Jester would have been gone a long time ago.
Well, I have to agree with Nick.
Hello.
Hi, Derek. You're not
How's
late
it
or anything, don't worry.
going?
We started off with the social aspect of the game, and the first person we're talking about is Jester. So
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm so
No,
sorry.
you're
Wait, I did have
You're
a,
okay.
I
We
did have a
just-
question for Kennedy, what Kennedy said. So when you say like people didn't want to get rid of Jester, we also saw somebody on actual Survivor that people didn't want to get rid of because they knew they were an easy beat. Do you think that's the case, or do you think it's because he made those connections?
What do you mean specifically?
Like Xander, people didn't take Xander out knowing he had an idol at the final 5 because they knew that they could beat him in the end. Do you think that's the case?
Hi. Can we not spoil?
Oh, I
Survivor
apologize.
I haven't watched this season yet. I'm on
Kelly
episode
is
4.
on episode 4. We just had a discussion about this during the final immunity
I'm on
challenge.
episode 2.
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Kelly, I do think you said that you knew Xander got far in the game, but that's all.
Okay.
So
I'll
that's
use
okay.
it. I'll
That's
use a
all I
different
need.
example. I'll use a
Yes,
different
let's
example.
not mention
Sugar.
anything else.
Sugar.
Since not everyone.
Somebody like Sugar. Do you think somebody would take? Do you think Jester is the Sugar of this season, or do you think that he made the connections that he
Okay,
needed to
that
in order
makes
to get
sense.
there?
I was very confused because I thought you were asking me, do you think Survivor 41 had an impact on the way this game was? I was like, girl, I don't know if we're playing just like Survivor 41. No, I personally think that it's because Jester made some connections. I don't think, and again, Kelly, I love you. And towards the end of the game, you cleaned up your shit and you did the thing. And I'm proud of you for that. But I think people probably viewed Kelly more as that kind of player over Jester. I don't think Jester was the player that everyone was like, Jester's only relying on social game. Jester wasn't necessarily I don't know how, I have a comparison, but it's 41. I think that Jester genuinely made connections with people, because if Jester hadn't, I think he would have been taken out, because I think Kelly was the one that people wanted to keep around for the end.
I could see that. Okay. That's the only question I had on that.
No, and then that makes sense. Thanks for like kind of clarifying.
I'm gonna agree with Nick.
Sorry, I'll DM you.
I think the Jester would not have made it to the end without having somewhat of a social game. But as far as I'm concerned, like, he wasn't very social with me. So I don't know. I don't have a whole lot to say in regards to him in a social game. Obviously, you have to have one in order to make it to the end. But he wasn't very social with me. So I don't know. That's about all I really have to say about that.
Okay, I can talk now. Like, I think Jester's social game overall was good, just because he got to the Saida tribe with where the majority were original Tipasa, and he was one of the people that we wanted to get rid of. But just because he was reaching out to all of us, and he was like really making the effort, and he like, just like with Kennedy, he was saying like, yeah, girl, like, we have to stick together because we're like the internationals. And yeah, so he finds something just to click with you and then just go over there. I genuinely thought that he wanted me to be like his ride or die. I don't know if that's true, because if he won the last immunity challenge, I still don't know what he would have done. But from what I heard, he had like a really good connection with Stoner since the beginning, because they were like together from the original tribe. Medea, I don't remember the name, and then when they reconnected after the merge. So I think his social game was good.
Kelly, I do have a question for you, since you were like really the only one there because it was the final 3 immunity.
Yeah.
Was there a deal made, or did they just go as long as they possibly could?
I think they did go as long as they could. I can say this, right, Megan? Like I can say how long they lasted and everything.
It was like 3.5 hours, right?
Yeah, it was like 3.5 hours. They started like making deals, but I think it was like jokingly in the first 15 minutes. And then like when they were like an hour and a half in, they were talking about trust. Like, if you trust me, why don't you just drop? And the other person will say the same. And I was just like, that means that you don't trust each other. And like they were saying, all I want is to like earn my spot in the final too, so that's why they were like so long. I didn't stay for the full 3 hours because I really had to go. I only stayed for the first 2, so I don't know what happened after that, but that's what I heard.
I also had something I wanted to bring up, Derek, before, because I know, I mean, I'm sure you want to like be able to give your input on it.
Sure,
but
yeah.
that I think we should bring up and discuss, because it was a pretty big thing. Jester was the vote for the first 2 merge votes, or like it was said that Jester would be the easy vote going into the merge. And Jester won the first 2 immunities, which obviously very much helped him. But one of those was touchy subjects, which means that Jester had a fairly decent read on the game, which shows social awareness and social game. And I think despite this, because what was the order? Josh, Stevie, CJ, yes?
Yes.
So
not me looking over the camera. There was not no need, but the CJ blindside versus Jester being an easy vote, Jester would have been so much easier. It would have been so much easier to just take out Jester because everyone had been talking about it. But Jester was able to get out of that situation, whether or not it was Jester doing it. And I think that has some social game to it, because yes, we took out CJ. Yes, there was that blind side, but Jester was the name the 2 rounds before.
I do want to say it depends on who you ask, though, because while I know that Jester's name was definitely out there for those first 2 merge rounds, I was very adamant with people that I did not want to vote for Jester, that would be actually bad for my game. I figured it would actually be better if I was straightforward with people so that it wasn't a blind side when I voted that way. My personal, because I kind of came in late, so I apologize. I apologize if I cut anybody off. I thought that I could use and manipulate Jester, and that was a big part of the reason why I wanted to work with him. I do believe that the easy vote, even on what was our swap tribe? Saida. Even there, it would have been an easier vote to vote out Jester, but I personally wasn't looking for easy votes. And I thought that Jester would be somebody that I could manipulate and use down the line. I'm pretty sure we're all aware of the Rainbow Warriors, or to some degree at some point, the 4 of me, Sam, Jester, and Brian. I really liked that group because like I thought everybody was attracted to me and I figured everybody would do what I wanted, kind of thing. So that's kind of my tidbit on it. Did I have the control on Jester that I thought I did? No, but at the same time, I also look at Stoner's game a little bit more. Are there any rules in like allowing what we say? Like, because I already know kind of who I want to vote for, to be honest. Like, I do want to be open-minded with anybody, like anything anybody else has to say, because that's the point of this. But
the way it's being structured is we're doing like each big 3 category, and then we go from like one person then the other.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So that's my little tidbit with Jester, specifically socially. It doesn't really help or add much. And when it comes to like the Stoner side of things, I'm going to share with you all, I feel like part of me is so fucking bitter that Stoner flipped on me when I flipped to begin with. Like, and it wasn't to work with stoners, so I can't sit here and lie and say that it was. But at the end of the day, I was like, God damn, he really wanted me out. But on the flip side of things, I can't sit here and say that I can't be a hypocrite. Not here, not now, because I want to win these games one day, kind of thing. And I can't have a hypocritical jury voting for me.
I do think in terms of Jester, that's more strategic. I'll wait till we get to strategic.
Brian, I think we've all gone if you're wanting to talk on Jester's social game. That's kind of where we're at.
Okay, so oh, I'm the only media here at the early stage of the game. I'm so sorry. At the early stage of the game, Jester and I immediately connected, and it's mainly because when I play these games, it's hard for me to find someone who's a gay immigrant from the same country. There's a lot of humanity where I felt like he capitalized on that a lot. And it's like, Brian, whatever happens, the two of us would work together. And this is something that I always tell people, let's not do that. Let's not over strategize. Let's not even talk game until we're sure that we already know what we're doing. And people in this game couldn't sit still. Like, everyone's asses were on fire. They don't even know who wins immunity. They're already talking about who they want out. And Jester's one of those people. And to me, I'm like, Jester, bitch, can you calm down? Like, can you calm the fuck down? Because this is bad for our game. I felt like for the first half of the game, Jester was an easy person to take out. And I think there's a little bit of admiration there. Like, who knew he would get this far, right? Because he's always been the person who's like, let's take him out, it's convenient, let's take him out when no one's looking, and it became, let's take him out when he's not with Brian eventually. But when we got separated, he found a way to survive on his own, and I like that. Maybe he used his ability to be underestimated to actually get far, or he tried to make himself essential to many other people. I don't know what he did, but he was able to survive. Come merge time though, I felt like a lot of us were protecting Jester to certain degrees, and it was because people kept thinking he's an easy person to beat near the end. Unfortunately for him, he kind of locked himself in a situation where he's sitting next to a person who can easily beat him in the end. His level of social awareness, I'm not sure if it's completely there, because if it was, he would have aligned with people who he can beat, not with people who he cannot beat. And that's my biggest problem. It's Jester's social game. It's not whether he's likable or not. It's he sat next to someone who he couldn't beat. Yes, loyalty is good, but I mean, be loyal to yourself first. Like, even friendships in these games, they do have expirations. And
I will say, as somebody, like, I understand that narrative, because I was somebody who was like, Stoner, if I don't want this, I want you to win this. Like, knowing that Stoner was probably beating me at the end, I still wanted that to be the final two. And I know there's a host in this game, Megan, who has definitely done that from time to time, being like, I've connected with you so well that I want you to win this game. And so I see that part of it, but on a player level, it's really poor in my eyes.
yeah, but basically that's all I have on Jester. It's so sad that as soon as I got to the jury, I don't know what happened, why what I thought was good suddenly changed. Because I read up on everything that was happening. And suddenly, as soon as I read up, I was like, I did not see that side of his game. And now I'm not as impressed anymore. Okay. That's all I have.
Anyone else want to add anything about Jester's social game?
I think that was a really good, I really like how Brian worded that. I think that was really, from my experience as well, I think that was a really good assessment. I just wanted to say that I ultimately agree with a lot of what you said. I also believe that the social awareness ultimately was not there, and could have been there more. It would make him look more appealing now if it was there, truthfully.
And my biggest thing is, with that, like me and Kennedy both told him, like, you need to figure out a way to separate yourself from other people. And he still refused to do that. And that's the biggest thing for me. Like, Kennedy literally told him to his face, like, you're too close to people, you're playing their games. Then she left. And then I said the exact same thing, and he continued to do the same things.
Well, my thing is the fact that he won touchy subject showed he must have had some, as it's been said, must have had some self-awareness.
But I mean, were other people also throwing that challenge? Because I know I certainly did.
I was.
I did not want to win that
I
challenge.
definitely just threw that challenge.
And that, like, I hate to say it, but that also kind of contributes. I imagine a lot of us probably did not want to win that challenge, or at least get every question right. I mean, Jester and Brian, I think you two were the like best scoring players in that challenge. I fucking made a chart, so I looked, I double checked.
I also
I wrote down what everybody said for everybody, because that for me is social knowledge. That's the takeaway. I didn't want to win that challenge, but so that's how my little devil's advocate about that specifically.
And to also play devil's advocate, I do think that the social dynamics in the early merge are significantly different than the social dynamics in the mid merge and late merge.
Yes, agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the early merge, I didn't work with Stoner at all. During live night, I almost exclusively worked with Stoner.
Alrighty, so if that's all on Jester, then we will move on to Stoner's social game. So again, whoever wants to go first, you can just chime in. And as you guys have been doing already, staying respectful of letting everyone give a chance to speak.
I think Stoner did a good job of making sure he didn't piss off people. I think he did a very good job of staying good with people, staying in good graces. I know when I was voted off, it was still a positive thing. I still thought very, very highly of him. And I know a lot of us still feel the same when it comes to him. He was very, very good at just being very, very personable and being very genuine, because he's a genuine guy, which I think worked in his favor and does work in his favor in these games. I think he played an excellent social game. He positioned himself well. He moved around socially when he felt he needed to, and it worked out in his favor.
I actually have a very opposite opinion. So I do agree. I do agree that he had a good overall social game. But individually, his social game with me, I was pretty hurt with the way that I went out. I don't think he handled my elimination well at all. And honestly, if there was anyone else sitting next to him, I wouldn't feel as secure as I do with my vote. He basically, and again, it was a live night, so it's very different. But it was after he had already locked his vote. And it was right before we were reading them in a chat with me, Nick, and Stoner. Stoner was like, Kennedy, I have to vote you out. I'm sorry. I feel closer to Nick than I do with you. And we just don't really talk game that much, which is absolute bullshit. Well, okay, not absolute bullshit, because we didn't talk game a lot. But in the chat, the three of us talked game a lot, and Stoner and I had been talking game without Nick as well. So I definitely had been talking to Stoner. It was something that the past couple rounds we worked on. And for Stoner to just be like, yeah, I don't talk to you as much as I talk to Nick. Give me a different reasoning. Tell me you need to vote me out because of your game, not because you don't feel as close with me to someone in our alliance, because there was no reason the three of us didn't need to go on. That's at least how he individually handled my elimination. I didn't really enjoy, because we had this relationship that we had built and grown. And for him to be like, it doesn't feel like much, was pretty upsetting, because like, that's not good jury management, in my opinion. Don't just throw away kind of the relationship that we built. Say, it was better for my game to vote you out. Perfect. I can respect that. Give me a real reason. And Derek, I know you had mentioned something before. I am not going to speak on your behalf.
No, so that brings up, if I can in here,
okay.
that brings up like very similarly, at least to how, I do still kind of I feel both ways. I feel bitter, but I have respect. And at the same time, I have to separate friends from game. That's how I operate. And so when I go to cast my vote, I feel like I do want to follow my own values, because I feel like it would be hypocritical if I didn't. I just wouldn't feel good about it. It would not be me treating the game as 100% as I did. I am very bitter. He did not give me a heads up, but not that I would have fucking wanted one, not from him. He told me that he wasn't voting for me, but could not tell me who he was voting for. And I was like, that's totally okay. I really don't care. If it's not me, that's great. But it was me. So it was at the same time, I didn't talk to him a lot that day. And that is also on me. It was so crazy that night. It was a lot. It was overwhelming. I've told a couple of you, I was having a bit of a mid-game crisis that day. I was very self-conscious of my position, that I was not doing as good of a job. Come to jury, I found out I kind of was doing a good, whatever. I was in my head and I fucking cracked. So congratulations, Nick. You did that.
Touch myself on the back.
But
Hashtag villain.
I don't even know if talking to Stoner more that day would have done anything different. I think the fact that I very much intentionally last minute flipped sides and he fucking did the same exact shit against me, it fucking grinds my gears. But at the same time, like, I get it. I'm a threat. Like, you had to get me out. Like,
I think the reason here's my tidbit as somebody who like went through live night all with Kennedy and Stoner. Yes. And then like had to talk to Stoner, or like got to talk to Stoner right after live night.
Yes.
The reasoning Stoner voted Kennedy. Well, let's start at the beginning. So I, on my own accord, without talking to Kennedy or Stoner about it, had that call with you to get you to flip your votes off of me. And then after the fact, at this point, it's like we got off that phone call 5 minutes before Tribal started.
Yeah.
And the three of us didn't get off of our
Well, there
call
were a couple calls, I think. Because I think Kennedy's given some odd faces. I think we had two calls.
Yep, I called Derek. You and I literally called like 4 times before we got onto the Tribal.
And Kennedy and I had not been calling since merge.
Well, I had said it in the chat, but during the entire day, the plan was always we have to vote out Derek. And then it flipped to we're gonna vote out Jester. And me and Kennedy were able to call and Stoner wasn't there. And so I think in Stoner's mind, because Stoner knew I was going to be scatterbrained because I thought I was getting the majority of the votes.
Yeah.
I felt very pulled in between Stoner and Kennedy that entire time. Sorry. I felt very pulled between both of them at the same time because I've played this whole game with Kennedy, but Stoner is somebody that I need for my game. And that's the reason I voted you out, because I believe I was the deciding vote in that, because I was very much torn between voting Jester with Kennedy and voting you with Stoner. But I think that vote was the reason that he voted you out, Kennedy, was because he just thought that you were going to be somebody further down the line that might flip at the last second. And I do think that I am to blame for you going home, because had I not had that conversation with Derek and had Derek had just gone home and I was the other vote, I think all three of us would have made final 6.
I disagreed with Stoner's play on that vote specifically. And I think as much as I know that some people are like, oh my God, get over this one vote. Like, it was a very big point in Stoner's game because 2 of his allies went pretty much back to back. And he was able to continue, and that's great for him. But I don't think he handled that round well. Not even just because I'm biased and I don't think I should have gone, because realistically, I was in a much better position than I wanted to admit, and it was probably better that I went home. I get that. I respect that. But go ahead, Brian.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Finish it.
I don't understand why. Because Stoner in DMs was like, you know what? You're right. I think it makes more sense to take out Jester here as long as we do Derek in the next one. And I said, if we need to take Derek out in the next live night, fine, whatever. But I want to keep Derek around for this one because you're going to be the shield for all of us. You're going to all of these things. And I had a whole list that I gave to both Nick and Stoner in DMs. And both of them were like, you're right. This is the better move. And then didn't make the move. And Nick is now sitting here right after me, but Stoner's at the end. So it really, it shows, would it have been a better move? Was it just not great at the time?
I think that speaks to Stoner's social game, because for us, we were backed, me and you specifically were backed into a corner where we had to make specific moves to get to the end. Stoner didn't have to make those moves to get to the end. And did it screw us in the end? Yes, but also he had options and we didn't.
Yeah,
I
there it
personally
is.
think I had options, but again, I'm biased with my game.
Okay, so let me talk a little bit about Stoner's game. Stoner did the opposite of what a lot of people did in this game, which is they would establish people who they think has to go next. What Stoner was doing in the background is he kept constantly opening options for himself while he's trying to talk to everyone. This person has to go, this person has to go, or I'm aligned with Nick, they're amazing, they're this, they are that. Next to the Medea 3, he's like, Nick has to go, but I will have to agree with whatever they say. And I'm like, I'm seeing what he's doing. And I know that in the end, his storyline would be, oh my God, the ultimate flip-flopper. But at the back of my head, I'm like, Brian, you can't be mad at that, because every time he flip-flops, he understands ultimately who he cannot sit next to. And I'm like, every person he flipped against are people who are scary to sit next to. Like, I love Kennedy with all my heart, but dear God, have you seen her present herself to the jury? You wouldn't want to sit next to someone like that. And Stoner did the right thing. Stoner did the right thing taking out Derek. Like, had Derek sat next to the end, it would have been really scary as well. And then as much as deep down, Stoner had nothing but genuine feelings for Nick. And then Stoner still made that decision. They had to go. And I'm like, oh, I now see how dangerous Stoner really is. And Sam and I wanted to take Kelly with us to take out Stoner, but that did not happen. And I'm not mad at that, because that was a really good move. Because I do think that if Stoner and I sat next to each other, it would have been a really scary finale for the two of us, because we would push each other. And I don't know why I'm under the impression that I'm a little bit more articulate than he is. And he understood that. So he's like, bitch, you have to go. And I'm like, okay, bitch, bye-bye. But yeah, I love Stoner's gameplay. I think he chose a path that is consistent, which is keep flipping against those people who can win against you. And it's painful to admit that, but it's effective because it got him to the end. So I like it.
And I'm talking so much and I'm so sorry. But another point on that is, not only did he flip on the people that he needed to, but he flipped when he needed to. And that itself shows how socially aware he was. Did it suck that I went out? Yes. But when I got voted out, I was holding on to an extra vote that Brian gave me. Yes, I used it, but Stoner was aware that, I mean, everyone was aware that I had it, but Stoner was aware that I had it. And going into it, Stoner would have had potentially to be more loyal to Nick and I, because the numbers would have been lower. And if he would have flipped, the jury management would have been very different. If you look at it as Jester going, Stoner probably would have had to burn one of us a little bit harder than he did if taking me out there. And then Nick eventually next. If it came down to the final 5 and me, Nick, and Stoner are in there, I'd be way more upset with Stoner right now than I would be at 7th. So
I
knew when you needed to cut people.
One big thing in terms of like cutting you that I failed to mention because I was in a car and like moving my stuff back into my room because I was at camp, is Stoner also was aware of how close you were to Brian, because Brian refused to vote you out sometimes. Like there were times when he knew you were the vote and would tell me that like I would vote anybody but Brian. But he would tell me like during the CJ vote, before CJ was the vote, Brian was telling me I need another name that's not Kennedy because I am not voting Kennedy. And I talked to Stoner about that. And so I could see where it's like in Stoner's head, you have an extra vote that Brian just gave you, somebody who you weren't in his mind working with. And had you stayed and had that extra vote, you could easily flip and vote him or me out.
Brian and I have this thing in games where we're not really on the same side, but like we love each other so much.
It happens a lot where we're not like in the same alliance group, but we look out for each other. And that's why Kennedy, that was horrible that night. Trust me,
I was so
that
hurt,
night.
but like I respected it so much because I knew that it was what you needed to do. And it was the first time I've ever seen you go back on your word, but make a good move. And like as hurt as I was initially, I was proud of you after because I know it was so hard for you, but you knew that we were close enough that I wouldn't be hurt by it.
I also think something that I need to bring up for both of them is this game had like, and I've said this multiple times. I'm sure you guys are all sick of me hearing this because I said at every tribal council. This game was full of incredibly amazing people, like people that I feel like we all were able to connect with on every single aspect and every single level. And so there was no chance in hell that anybody was going to play this game perfectly. Somebody was going to piss somebody off at one point in time. And there was no way of getting around that. Because I think, like, genuinely, I've had conversations with almost all of you where I've been like, I want this person in my life forever. Like, this is somebody that I feel like I could be best friends with if they lived in my city, and like we would go do everything together. And so I feel like in this game particularly, we can't look at like, well, you burned me the worst, so you're not getting my vote. And it's more of like you have to look at it from an outsider's perspective, who genuinely played the best social game in terms of this aspect. And I guess I'll go. Oh, CJ, you go.
Well, I will say this. Obviously, I'm biased towards Stoner. But his social game to me was impeccable. Simply because he had to waver through every single tribal. There wasn't one that he missed. A lot of you touched on a lot of different bases that are accurate. I mean, he made his impact with each and every one of you and the way that he had to do it. I know towards me, he flipped on his number one person, just because of the connection that me and him had when we had the swap. He was the only person in the game that didn't ever lie to my face. And so to me, that speaks volumes. And he personally told me the night that I was getting evicted, I told him I didn't feel right. I said I felt like I was going home. He said, well, play your idol. I said I didn't have one, or I played it. But he did tell me that night that he would make sure that Derek, Sam, and Kennedy and Nick would all go home. So nothing personal against you guys. I love all you guys, but I mean, he made it to the end, and so I'm super happy for that. And I don't know, overall, he played the best social game out of everyone. That's all I have on that.
Hey, I guess I'll go next. So like I said before, I didn't really talk as much with Stoner when CJ was in the game versus when he was out of the game. I definitely had calls with Stoner, like hour-long calls with Stoner, but it definitely wasn't to the level it was after Final 9. After Final 9, I talked with Stoner on the phone at least 3 hours of the day, every single day, up until the point I was voted out. Stoner was somebody that I, like, Kennedy, I love you to death, but you're an insane player, and I know how insane of a player you are. I trusted Stoner more than I trusted the person I started this game with. Like, the Kennedy was always my number one person.
Literally met during this game.
Like, we met up during this game,
Like,
hid it from
literally
everybody but Josh.
each other, and you didn't trust me. Wow.
It's just like, I felt like my game aligned more with Stoner, and that might be the case. Am I gonna be naive to think that Stoner probably knew I was a big threat and was going to take me out? Absolutely not. However, the way Stoner treated me up until the point I was voted out is eons better. And this is saying, you all are incredible, amazing people that I do think every single one of you could be my best friends outside of this game. Eons better than anyone else. Stoner made me feel like I was his number 0.1. Like, and I went home knowing that he probably knew, like, he told me I was getting voted out. We came up with this plan that obviously failed, all this other stuff, but he never once did I think like, Stoner's doing this to be an asshole, or Stoner's doing this pointlessly. everything Stoner did in this game on a social level had a reason. And that's something that I cannot say about Jester.
I think that's tricky though, because that then goes back on CJ's point, where Stoner had said, like, before he left, like, I'm gonna make sure that all of them who voted you out go, because then he hopped over and was like, hey guys, I love you. Like, I really think that, and CJ, this isn't me talking badly about Stoner because of that. If anything, it's Stoner being adaptable and recognizing that those are the people he needed to jump to. I mean, granted, it's probably not like ideal for you to be like, yeah, he told me he'd vote you out and then he started working with you, but it's what he needed to do at the time. He recognized that.
Which is I think Stoner probably had a better grasp of the social dynamics of this game than anybody in this game. I think Stoner knew exactly who he needed to work with. Like we've said it how many times in the Ponderosa chat. Stoner knew when and who he needed to work with to move forward in the game. And at the end of the day, it's Survivor. There's only one winner, and Stoner knew that more than anybody and played the game as best as he could.
All right. I mean, I totally agree, like, with Kennedy, 100%. Obviously, he didn't know I was the vote, and he didn't vote me out. And like I said, he did say he was coming after you guys, but in order for him to progress in the game and make it to the point to where he did, regardless of whether I like it or not, he had to adapt and reform connections and get close with the people that he needed to further his game. So that just goes to more further proof of just how great his social game was. Like, I wouldn't have expected him to do anything less. Obviously he wanted me and him in the end, but that didn't work out that way. So when I got voted out, he had to adapt, and he did what he had to do to get to the end. So he by far had the best social game.
I have something else to say, and I'm sorry that I'm literally talking so much. I'm so sorry. I played the game pretty closely to Stoner for a little tiny chunk, and so I think that his game can be very much, at least socially, viewed in phases. And I know that it's got like the pre-jury or like the pre-merge and then the merge. But as much as I hated like him being loyal and saying, oh, I'm this loyal player, he was until he didn't need to be. He was loyal to CJ for that beginning chunk of the game, obviously. So, okay, on Medea. He was loyal on Medea until he got CJ. Then he was loyal to CJ until CJ went. Then he got Nick, and I was loyal to us until we went. He told us about the alliances behind that we hadn't known about. He told us about all these different things. He shared all of the information that he had until he realized that we were potentially going to be in a better position than him. And so if that's something that he can recognize and phrase or word at finale, I will be very impressed, because that shows that he not only knew what he was doing while he was doing it, but he was able to look at it top down and say, this is exactly how I did it. And that is something that I would love to see him do.
See, I agree if you replace a certain word. I think he was loyal until he couldn't be. I think he didn't know CJ was the vote, did everything in his power to try and make sure that CJ stayed. CJ told him he had an idol. He told him to play it. He knew I was going home. He told me I was going home. We made up this plan to fake one of Josh's idols, and it didn't work. He did everything in his power to keep the people he needed here until he couldn't, or that he wanted here until he couldn't. I think you are probably the only exception in that, where
right.
he kept you until he.
Yeah. Yep, but I think we have the same point.
Yeah.
Nick, that fake idol move almost worked. Like, I couldn't tell you how many times I got calls from Jester, Sam, everyone's like, let's throw the vote. And I was like, where am I gonna get all these calming powers? Am I just gonna give them drugs so they would calm the fuck down?
Had Kelly not played that steal a vote, it might have. But the second Kelly played it, I was like, I'm going home.
Brian was the reason why it didn't
Kelly,
work.
I'm going home.
Nick, Brian was the reason it didn't work, because Brian was so unshakable. He was like, we need to stand strong. We need to not do this. We need to be.
It was so scary, like, because I knew at the early moments of that day that I was gonna be the vote, and I was just like, calm down. You're gonna be fine. Just get Jester and Sam with you, then the three of you will be solid. No matter what
My
happens,
confessional, sorry,
you'll be
carry on.
fine.
My confession on that one was hilarious. So I was like talking about how you were going out and how I was voting you, and then I was like, actually, no, maybe I could throw a vote. What do you? I was talking to myself for about 2 minutes in my confessional about convincing myself to throw a vote. And I was like, Brian, what should we do?
I have a question, and it might speak to Stoner's social game, but it has to do with that vote. So there was a there was a kind of side plan that was thrown by Stoner. And I want to know if it would have worked, and if it would have worked, that it speaks even more to his social game. If it doesn't, then I guess not. Stoner was going to give me the immunity. Had he given it to me, would Stoner go home?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
then-
At that
then there's
point,
that.
yes.
Okay.
Because Kelly had an extra vote. So no, not a steal a vote. So at that
Yeah.
point, like just no, what's his name? Stoner kept voting out Kelly, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
it was like the second time he voted me. So if it
Yeah,
wasn't
no.
you, it was going to be him.
The plan
Okay,
was.
so then he made the
one
right
of those
decision, because I told him, like, only do it if you're comfortable, and he wasn't comfortable and he didn't give it to me. And he told me before tribal that he wasn't giving it to me.
I think if anybody gives, like, if anybody, even if the vote is not on them, decides to give somebody their immunity necklace, I might just go ahead and vote for them anyway. If you feel that comfortable in this
Yes,
game, you just go-
exactly. Mhm.
That was my question, but anybody else?
I
Any
think
other
Stoner
comments
did
on
feel in.
Stoner's social game?
Sorry,
Oh,
yeah, I think Stoner did feel in danger at top six, rightly so, because he added me to a group chat with a load of friends, and he practiced that score game for at least 6-7 hours, like non-stop, because he felt
No,
that,
he practiced with me too. He practiced
he-
with me too.
like we practiced about 2 or 3 hours, and then he said he practiced on the day for a lot with other people, probably including you. So he was like, he knew that it was a risk of him going if he didn't win. Then I know it's physical. We can talk about that later, but just that, and he used that to build social bonds with me as well.
Could
which
could I
thought was-
ask why Sam was the vote over Stoner at 5?
It wasn't my decision.
I think it
That's
was
Kelly's
mine,
decision.
because
Yes.
they were all supposed to be voting for me. But Sam was telling me one thing, like he and Brian wanted to vote Stoner out, and then Stoner told me, your name's being thrown around. Like Sam told me, don't believe anything they say. But I really trusted Jester since I met him. So I was like, I don't think Jester will vote for me. Like, I really don't think so. And Jester was like, Sam wants you out, and they want you out. Like, all of you told me that you had a separate group that was supposed to be secret. Like, and all of you told me that it exists. Well, except for Brian, because he didn't talk to me. So that was like suspicious. If he doesn't want to vote me out, why doesn't he reach out to me or say something to me? So maybe Sam does want to vote me out, and he's just trying to, act normally and stuff. Then Stoner said, if you want to do something else, like, we can do that. And I was like, okay, we can't vote out Brian because he won immunity. What, like, the only option left is Sam, and we're talking with Jester and stuff. And I was like, as much as it hurts, because I really, I mean, I was with Sam since the beginning, but in that vote, I felt something, or felt stronger with Jester. And I don't know, Stoner, he was the first one to reach out to me after the merge, and he talked to me every day. And sometimes he was the only one that I responded to. Like, if I'm busy, he was the only one that because I don't know, we were talking about other stuff. I think he was talking to me knowing that he didn't need me yet, but he will need me at some point. And I was talking to him,
Damn.
I thinking that I didn't need him, because I don't know, I was always, most of the time, I was on the right side of the boat, so I didn't need his boat. I never asked him for a boat. So, but yeah, and in the end, we had a connection, and I think things worked out that way. Like Sam and Derek know that I did wanted to vote him out after Nick, when in the night, the live night, but Derek got paranoid and it didn't work.
On the social aspect of that, I think that speaks even more to Stoner's social game, because I don't think Stoner ever just dismissed anybody. I know a lot of us dismissed Kelly at some point or another in this game, and Stoner, I feel like, is one of the only players in this game who gave everyone time and opportunity to talk to him, and was one of the only people who didn't, even if like he told people he didn't, I genuinely don't think Stoner ever like counted somebody out as like, they'll never vote with me.
And he always apologized for, well, he apologized to me both times he voted me for me, and I was never mad because I knew, I don't know, I was never mad at him. I told him, I don't worry, like I get it. I wasn't expecting you not to vote for me, so it's not a surprise. But then the next day it was just good morning, how are you? And then he will say, I still would like to work with you if you want. And I'm like, okay, if I ever need to work with you, then we'll do. But for the moment, let's just keep it casual, I think.
I think it also
Kelly
speaks.
said, I'm not looking for anything long term yet.
I think Kelly's point also, though, kind of talks about Jester, because she knew she could rely on Jester, and she knew, like, she had brought a couple times, like, she knew that Jester wasn't going to vote her. She knew that you and Jester were together. I think that point kind of highlights both of them, and it makes sense because you were the final three.
Yeah.
But I definitely think it's a good point for both, because although Jester may not have been reliable to a lot of us, I personally, at least, and Brian can call me out on this because it's exactly what I did in iSurvivor, a duo can get very, very far. And Kelly and Jester, as a loyal duo to each other, did just that. And even though Jester didn't necessarily have a whole group of people in this majority, blah, 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 like, social game with one person really strong, really loyal is still a respectable social game, because you knew that you had each other's back.
And it's two votes and not only one. It's always going to be two votes.
Yes.
Exactly.
Your way.
And it's testament to both Stoner and Jester's social relationship with you, Kelly. The fact that you believed them and believed what they were telling you, even though it wasn't true, but you believed them and what they were saying at the final five vote over obviously Brian and I, because you had built such a good social bond with them, which is a testament to them. Yeah.
It's very opposite points. Stoner, without wording this to sound like really rude, but like, Stoner gave you that shot when it felt like no one did, but Jester always gave you the shot and never doubted. So it's two very different ways to view it, but both are very good ways to play the game.
Yeah. And Stoner was always like really upfront. Like, he told me who was voting for. I mean, he always told me the truth. Like, in last tribal council, like the final one, he told me before, I'm voting for you because I think I can win against Jester. And I was like, I'm okay with that. Like, I'm not gonna say anything bad about Jester because he has been with me like all the way since the tribe swap. And Sam, I just, like, Derek told me once, like, you were planning to vote me out a little bit further in the game. Some people told me that too. So I was like, nobody told me that about Jester or Stoner. So I was like, maybe this is the time Sam wants to vote me out. So that's the other reason why I voted you out first.
Okay, blocking Derek. Okay.
No, I was so mad because I got voted out, and then I saw that Sam got voted out, and I was like, fuck, I hope what I said to Kelly didn't affect her. No, I definitely,
Megan,
I was trying to get Kelly a little bit more on my side, away from Sam. I mean, I told a lot of y'all, and I don't know if you feel this way, Kelly, I'd love to hear your point of view. I always felt like you were a little bit closer to Sam than with me. And so it was really just in an effort. Like, I think this was the round after CJ had gone. Sam and I had called with Stoner. He literally cried with us on call, like, and because he was upset that he voted for, I think it was that he voted for Kelly. I mean, and obviously that CJ was gone and that his game was turned upside down, but that he voted wrong and he pissed somebody off that I did not even realize he had that type of relationship with. So when you said that, like, there were days, Kelly, that like he was the only one that talked to you. That I had no idea. But like, was it obvious? Like, did you feel distance from me? Because that was definitely my attempt. Like with that call, I wanted to try to get you in more my corner. I was going crazy.
I mean, I don't think it was you. I didn't think it was you trying to persuade me to go to your side or just to go get closer to you than with Sam, because Sam like was talking to me every day, and we talked. We had calls, like we talk about life stuff, and maybe I wasn't as close to you because I don't know, like life, it's busy. It's not because I didn't want to, but when you said that, I was like, it's not crazy to think that he wants to vote me out later. And you did say like he's a threat because he has like a really good social game, and I was like, yeah, that's true. So
yeah, no.
That worked a little bit because I didn't vote you out. I voted for Jester in that round.
Yes, I was, I didn't know originally what had happened. I've heard kind of bits and pieces, but at the same time, like, I'm no saint either. I was talking shit about Sam. Now, it was never like intent for Sam to go, but it was more intent to gain more people on my side. I very much thought I was playing behind Sam for a lot of this game. I thought, and that was my intent. I wanted Sam to be ahead of me. I wanted Sam to be number 1 and me number 2. Yeah. But that's besides the point. Sorry.
I'm just gonna add, hearing Kelly talk now is what I've been telling everyone. She's good at this. She's thinking through a lot of things. And I hated how underestimated she was, because I was talking to Jessica and Stoner about this, not in a negative light. I was like, do not underestimate Kelly, because if I'm being honest, I would want to vote for her if she makes it to the end. And now, like, hearing her talk, like, she knows what she was doing the whole time. She may have played a low-key role in other people's games, but I loved every moment of it. Like, I know we never got a chance to talk in person, Kelly, and that's my fault. Like, I was in a difficult time zone, then I was traveling, then I was in a hospital. Like, I had a lot of fucking excuses. I'm so sorry. But in all reality, even from afar, I totally admired your game. I was like, I'm not going to underestimate this lady. I'm just not going to build that relationship. So if I have to vote her out, it's like, I did not owe you
Don't
anything.
break my heart.
Yes, I'm sorry about that.
I definitely want to apologize for the way that when I went out, I literally said, Kelly, you do nothing. Like, that was so unnecessary. That was so unnecessary. I could have been like, Kelly, no one's seeing the game you're playing. If you're trying to be like under the radar, be flashier, or like people aren't. Yeah. But I was definitely more of a villain than I needed to be, because
I didn't reach out to you, but you didn't reach out to me. Like, we never talked about anything. So
we tried. It did not work, and that's okay.
I think
Nick tried. You didn't. So
I think after Kennedy said that, Kelly kind of grabbed these men by the nuts and ran through the competition with them.
It was a catalyst.
And it was everything that I needed to see.
And I remember I spoke, I think, to Sam about this privately, where I said, like, during that round that I went, Kelly was on top of it. Like, I didn't know what happened, but like I saw the player in Kelly, and I also did not want to underestimate her. And if she was in the final 2, I would heavily be considering voting for her as well.
Because you didn't know you wanted to split votes. You wanted to split votes, and I told you, like, it's not smart to split votes, because if one of them has an idol, or if an idol is played that Nick's could have an idol, like, one of us would have been screwed. That's what happened, but not how we planned it. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Brian.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Okay. I think we have to move on to the next
Hi,
part.
sorry. I got distracted for a few minutes, and I realized this was turning into a praise Kelly call, which I'm totally fine with, for sure. But also, I want to be respectful of everyone's time, and we can do more praise Kelly call post the official roundtable if you all would like in the jury chat. So with that, I'm assuming everyone's pretty much done with the social game for both. So let's move on to the other most important one, which is strategic game. And since we started social with Jester, we will start strategic with Stoner. So go ahead.
I think Stoner's strategic game is better than most here. I won't say everyone. I think, in all honesty, the only person sitting here who I think had a better strategic game is Brian. I think you don't even have to like talk about what he did. And I know this is annoying, everybody take a shot, but the fact that he went to every single tribal council and didn't receive votes until the final 5, like, shows that. Like, I didn't receive votes to the final 6, but I also didn't go to half the tribal councils that he did. I was somebody who was fortunate enough to not go to tribal council until merge. And I do think if I did go to tribal council, I would have received votes. So to have that be like, that's something admirable that I think is something that should be talked about, as annoying as it is to talk about. But going into his game, I think he was the most adaptable player here by far. He was somebody that, okay, my closest alliance member just went home. What do I do now? Let me go talk to Nick and Kennedy. Now Nick and Kennedy are gone. Let me talk to Jester and Kelly because I need them on my side. And that's something that I think really benefited him. Even like going as far as like, okay, Medea's leaving really rapidly, and I know that I'm gonna need somebody from the majority tribe. Let me connect with CJ and see how far that goes. I think that's even talks to his strategic game. Like he thought moves ahead. He never played it out like, I know, at least from my perspective, let me go back out here because it was echoey. At least from my perspective, I very like the second Josh got voted out, I felt very backed against a wall. I felt very tunnel visioned, like I only could play one certain type of way. And I feel like Kennedy might have felt the exact same way. Whereas Stoner plotted multiple steps ahead. He knew exactly what he wanted to do and played the same game over and over and worked every single time.
I think we've spoken a lot about his strategic game when we spoke about social. The fact that he flip-flopped, but he knew when to do it and did it at the correct time. He knew what he was doing, and it's really hard to explain exactly what he did, but he played so well in all 3 aspects, to be fair. But yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that we've mentioned a lot of what he's done strategically already.
The flip for me is really the biggest strategic move. I mean, obviously he got me out, so maybe I'm biased, maybe I'm egotistical, but I tried to do literally what he did and it fucked me over. You know what I mean? And he's still in the game. So I just really have to tip my hat off. I literally tried to do almost the exact same thing for my game and I got voted out. So just by that comparison, like, he was a very strategic player. I do think with aligning with CJ, whether it was, you know, a genuine connection or, you know, he had some strategy in it. I know that there was part of it, like, I believe he connected with you, CJ, but I do believe part of it was that this was his deposit in when the merge hit, kind of thing. Now, I know me personally, I was very coming into the merge, let's play a blended game. I don't want to be deposit strong because I didn't want to be in the majority because I knew that that would make me look worse, kind of thing. So I tried to be in the minority and the majority. I did too much, I realize. But at the same time, that's where my hat tips off to Stoner because I'd never felt like he did too much. And I never really considered Stoner the way that I am now at that point in time in the game. But again, you know, it's final 2. It's obviously 2 people, so it helps narrow it down. But yes, I don't know. That's a lot, but that's that.
I also want to bring up the fact that me and Kennedy multiple times talked about how CJ and Stoner were probably going to flip-flop every vote. And while he did flip-flop, it was more of a need and less of a, I'm just going to do this. And yes. I feel like that's why I personally find his game more admirable, because did he flip-flop? Yes, but he flip-flopped to survive and thrive in this game.
There's method to it.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay.
It was really good that he waited until after CJ left that his game really came alive from flippity flop. He was playing a loyal game until he realized he probably could not.
Exactly. Because once Kennedy left, I think he kind of knew I was screwed. And he stayed with me until I left, while probably talking to Kelly and Jester at the same time, but never made me feel that I was somebody that he was going to vote out at any point in time. And he didn't vote me out at any point in time. Do I think that that might have minorly been a little bit of jury pandering? Absolutely. But also, you can't deny the fact that going into this Ponderosa, I felt really good about Stoner. Going into this Ponderosa, CJ only felt good about Stoner. And so that's something that definitely you have to take into consideration. He made sure that these were the people going in, like that people going into Ponderosa, barring Kennedy, of course, were people that were going to fight for him to win this game.
I was gonna say he's like, I think it went Nick. What was the order you guys were out? Nick, Sam, Brian,
Kelly.
No, I had Jester next. Jester, Stoner, Kelly. But Kelly, I didn't know what you were doing, and I would have changed it. I was not happy with Stoner. And also, more so on the strategic point, I like early on, like when we first got into the merge, I did have options. Josh went. I knew that if I really wanted to, I could flip over to Derek and Sam. I would just have to put in the work. And I knew that I felt really, really good with Brian, and I could show Brian that. And as long as Brian knew that my intentions were true, which they were, Brian and I could have done something as well. I definitely felt like I had options. But at the end of the day, I did pick Stoner, and I wouldn't have flipped on Stoner. And I think that's why I was so pissed that he did cut me. But again, strategically, I think it made sense because the people that I listed, Sam and Brian, sorry, Derek, were still in the game at the point that I got voted out. And so those options were still there for me. And I think that shows that strategically, that's what Stoner needed to do. Again, I don't like it, but it was a good move. And that's more because I know we talked a lot about a lot of the things we talked about in social were social and strategic, but that specifically I think was a good strategic move. Obviously it has social ties to it, but that's a specific strategic move that he made that I think was very good.
Okay, so let me talk about the things that I observed Stoner doing, because Stoner and I, during the early media moment, we had long calls, and I was telling him one thing we're not going to do is take credit for things, because that would look really, really messy. We have to let people play their game and just be okay with it. I promise you, Stoner, eventually when you get to the end and you're the only person who did those moves as a part of the execution, you will be able to take credit. And all throughout the entire game, he never said to people, I did this, I did that, I did this. The mode of conversation has always been, I help people do this, I help people do that. And I was like, I love Stoner. But at the same time, I felt like I gave away a piece of my game, because he realized this is what Brian's doing too, and he's doing it like a lot cleaner than I am, because eventually I'm getting exposed. So when he told me, like, Brian, remember what you told me, like, eventually I'll be able to take credit, and he's like, I'll only be able to take credit if you're out. So when he explained that to me, I couldn't feel mad about it. I was like, yeah, because that's what I said, and now he has to do it. I have to go. And when I had to go, I wasn't mad. Like, I tried everything. I guilt tripped him. I pulled every stop possible, and I was like, I was being a good Christian. I was being a bad Christian. Every hypocritical things in the book that I could pull, I tried, but he was very unwavering, and I was like, oh, I like this. I like that he's very steady and he knew what he had to do. And I was just like, okay, you have my vote, even if I go out. So I like Stoner. I like the game that he played. It's actually considerably better than most that I've seen in other orgs.
Agreed.
I have a question, because so I typed in the chat again. I know I'm talking a lot. Sorry. I typed in the chat before, because I was not having it, and I put my questions that I'm going to ask them for the finale and whatever. And this okay, maybe I'll do it as like a raise your hand, and then if that gives me it, Every time I apologize too much. Okay, sorry. No, fuck. Okay. Just can you raise your hand if you think that Stoner played a messy game? Okay, so it's literally just me. I just needed to understand because I thought my vote was messy and I understood that like other things that he did I saw as messy, but I think I'm viewing it from the lens that I went out the way I did, and that's why I wanted to see it from other people because I told him clean up your game, and I think he did.
I do think the only messy move that he made in this game was probably voting you out.
Okay.
I think it was a calculated mess.
Very clean
I think it was a
game.
calculated mess.
Yeah, it was a good
was.
mess. It just didn't. It was the way it was executed to me, and that's
Yeah.
why I'm recognizing that I'm going to view his game a little bit differently, and that's why I asked because I want to be as non-biased as possible.
I want to chime in if that's okay. I do not enough to raise my hand, but I do feel those sentiments. I feel those seeds, if you will. Again, for me, it just goes back to some of the things I have already said. Like, he didn't give me any heads up, and not that I would expect it. Like, but at the same time, strategically, clearly, he didn't fucking need me there because he's in the end and I'm not. You know what I mean? Like, I know after the CJ vote, Sam and I had called him, and then I don't know if it was, I think it was the next morning, I called him personally. This is when I started giving Stoner a lot of information I now regret. Because I wanted to throw the ball in his court. I wanted him to be a lot more aware of the game that I was trying to play. I was trying to be very transparent with him that Sam's eventually probably going to go. Whether it's my choice or not, I needed Stoner after that. And my frustration is just that obviously he didn't need me, and I did give him a lot, but I can't justify not voting for him because of that. Because again, he's at the end. Like I was just an obstacle. So of course he would go against me, even though it's frustrating.
I will say 2 points. The first one, I think that from my understanding, the fact that the two people who are the most frustrated with Stoner are the two that went out during a live night shows that like under pressure, Stoner can be a little bit more messy in his gameplay. He doesn't have time to think things out. And I think that's true for most of us, that when we're in a live night, we get scatterbrained, we get frustrated, we get confused, we get nervous. And so we can't play as clean as a game as we want. On the flip side of things, you said you got frustrated that he didn't tell you, but you understand why. However, I had to pry the fact that you were voting me out of you. Like, I asked you multiple times and you denied it every single time until you asked
because
me.
I'm not going to say that I don't have that messiness. That's why I feel both ways. That's why I can't just feel one way about it, because I'm that person too. I am hypocritical, and I'm trying not to be. I want to make sure I'm not as much as possible, but I want to raise every point I'm literally thinking. No, you are absolutely spot on, Nick. You are absolutely right. I just need to raise my point so other people, because I do kind of agree with Kennedy. I don't want Kennedy to believe that, she's the only one who but you are right with that. It's a live night, that it gets messy for people. I could never play like I go in live nights every time, and I try everything I can do to avoid it. But it's just something that it scares the living shit out of me, because whatever amount of control I had before, I lost or don't have during a live night. And Stoner probably assessed and probably knew that, and still regardless made it work for him. So while I do feel frustrated, it's out of respect kind of thing. It's never any point that I raise tonight is not going to be like against somebody personally, or that I can't vote for them because of how much they fucked me over. That's not me. Ooh. I do just want to raise my points and how I felt.
Kelly, I do have a question to you. Did Stoner know about your steal a vote?
No, nobody knew.
Okay.
I have a question for whoever knows. Like, did someone give him a fake idol, or did he just make it up?
Oh, I gave him a fake one. I gave him a fake one.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Because because he said, I don't remember if he said like you gave it to him. I don't remember, but he said like somebody gave it to him. But then I was thinking maybe he just made it up. So I just felt, because he played it for me, he didn't know the votes were going to for him. So I thought that maybe if he made it up, it was just to keep me on his side, you know.
Did he know?
Okay,
Did he know it was a fake idol?
No, he
Yeah,
did
he
not.
knew it was.
He-
The
one from
plan was
CJ.
that I had one of Josh's idols,
Oh,
and
okay.
when I left, remember I said like I didn't use it tonight, and I'm glad it's still in the game.
Yeah.
That
Okay,
was
yeah.
like his idol. That was like
Uh-huh.
Nobody
his to
believed
use
that.
however he wanted to, which also speaks to his strategy. He used something that I made up to further him to Final Four.
Okay, that's something I want to build up on because Stoner is very, very good at trying to be the right level of performative, not in a bad way, because this society uses the word performative in a negative connotation. It's not that. He creates a story at Tribal, and then he makes you feel good about the things that he's doing.
Mhm.
And then after Tribal, he would call you to pick it up. Like, let's continue the story. For example, the things that he did for Kelly, he would be like, oh, I played that idol for you because, you know, I thought it was a real idol, all these things. So he's
I
making
got
Kelly
lost.
feel.
Did he knew that it was fake or not?
He knew it was fake. Yeah.
Okay. That was just what
So
I
there
needed
was
to
something
know.
like that. I tried doing that with Kelly too. I tried sending her to Oasis thinking that, oh, I can now build a relationship with her. But I got back to the US and got fucking drunk. So I'm like, I did not pick up the story. He did that a lot better. Like he knows how to perform and make you feel good. And then he would pick it up the next day. So there's an entry point for conversations.
And
I
to
like
that,
it.
Derek and Sam, when you called with him after the CJ vote, did you feel decent with him?
No, that's why I went
Or-
individually. That's why
Or yeah,
I
like
started.
after that individual call, did you feel decent with him? Decent.
No. No,
No?
not 100% like I wanted to. But that's I guess that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I was putting work into him. Not to say that like I was expecting him to just not vote me out. I was having 2-hour long calls with him as well, like especially after the CJ vote, because I really wanted to put a little bit of the blame on Sam. You know what I mean? A lot of my game was propping Sam up, so y'all look at him before me, kind of thing.
Thanks, Derek.
So yeah, I'm so sorry, Sam. And it didn't work. It didn't work. I spent a lot of my game doing something that didn't pay off. Like so that yeah. Anywho, no, I never felt like Stoner was 100% mine. But that's why I put the ball in his court, because I really wanted him to be able. I wanted to give him the ability to control. And
But I'm asking, did you think Stoner was going to target you next?
I thought personally for
No.
me, he was alone
I will say
at
no,
that moment.
So the reason I bring this up is
because
because
it's a testament to his game.
well, no, this goes to what Brian said in following
Mhm.
through. He was following through with you while he was telling me and Kennedy, like, Derek's next to go. I want Derek out of this game.
Absolutely. No, I do agree.
I have a question about Stoner's. Also, sorry, now I'm in my room and Ben's right there. So if you can hear him, sorry.
Ooh, Zaddy Ben. Sorry.
Okay. I just swallowed my chip. Okay. Hi. Was Stoner ever the one to throw out a name? Like was Stoner, because even when Kelly brought it up, Kelly was like, yeah, Stoner came to me and was like, well, we can do something else if you want. But that's not Stoner picking someone and making that move. It's, hey, you're the vote. There's one or two other people that we can vote. Would you like to not be the vote? Like, did Stoner ever, out of a lineup of people, say, we should do this one, and that one went? Or did somebody else kind of put the work for that?
Just the Nick vote. Just the Nick vote at 6. Nick, he was the one. Oh, he was the one who said to me, "We should get Nick out at 6."
Okay.
He also said about Kelly at 5. Obviously, that didn't happen. That was a ruse. But
and not that I'm trying to necessarily downplay Stoner's game, but there's more angles to it. Just because like I don't know if Jester ever did that, but Stoner didn't necessarily play like a flawless strategic game, because a lot of the moves were made by the people who are sitting here, and that's why they're sitting here. Stoner can't necessarily claim, I put you in the jury, like to maybe anybody but Nick, because if Stoner hadn't voted for me, I would still be here. And Stoner wasn't the spearhead of my move or the move to get me out. So I don't necessarily know if Stoner ever was like, this is who I want to go, or was he one of those players who was like, yeah, that sounds good.
I
Yeah.
agree with you, Kennedy. I think that there is, I'm sorry to chime in, there's a level of circumstantiality that does go, but that at the same time, I feel like in every single one of these games, there has to be a level of circumstantiality that goes into the effect of the final two, final three. You know, I've never seen, I have played one game where like one person / duo has ran it from start to finish, but you don't see that a lot. And so I don't want to hold it against Stoner for the circumstantiality, but at the same time, I hear exactly what you're saying, Kennedy, because that does attribute to some of the feelings as well. Yeah.
I would say, by a show of hands, how many of you think that Stoner was a follower?
I'm on the fence.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I
I don't
think
know how
he
to
is.
answer that.
I think he got behind the movements that he believed were good for him, but I
Yeah, I
don't
thought
think he did it.
like a free agent. That's
Yeah, I
Yes.
see.
Yes.
I see the. We'll talk about him later, but I see Jester's strategy as more of a follower strategy,
That's
where Stoner was more of a
100%.
free agent.
Agreed.
Kelly worded that perfectly. I think Stoner was very much somebody that knew of it, like was very aware of his position, very much knew exactly what he needed to do to get to the end and executed that.
Nick,
Maybe
I've got a
not
question for you.
flawlessly, but he still executed it.
Nick, I've got a question for you. Just because speaking about your vote out. Do you because obviously Stoner initiated, well, he was the one who said your name first, but he also made a plan with you to try and make that not happen. Do you think that was just to keep you sweet, or do you think he genuinely wanted that?
I think at that point he knew that it was probably going to be me or him, and obviously I'm loyal to a fault. I hadn't talked to you, I hadn't talked to Brian, I hadn't talked to Kelly or Jester as much as I knew he did. And so I knew if it came down to the vote, it probably would have been you or him. Did I think that he was the one that mentioned my name? No. Do I fault him for that? Absolutely not. I do think that if you voted Stoner out and I made it to the final two, I was probably winning this game. And I think he knew that as well. I think just like Brian at 5, if Brian made it to the end of this game, or at 4, if Brian made it to the end of this game, he was winning. If Sam made it to the end of this game, he was winning. He's not gonna sit there, like, he's loyal. What is loyal? What's the difference between what's loyal to a fault? Does that mean you're loyal to a certain point?
Loyal unconditionally.
Is where
Okay,
you'll
I
shoot
think
or you shoot someone else.
I think he's loyal to a point where I'm loyal to a fault. With Kennedy and Stoner, I voted with Stoner thinking that Stoner wouldn't vote Kennedy out because I needed Kennedy in the game. Stoner is somebody who is loyal but understands that this is a game and you need to win, and he's very good at separating personal and game.
Oh, go ahead. I thought you were done.
So did I know that he did that? No. Am I surprised that he did that? Oh, not really.
No, I agree with you that he does separate personal game. That's good, because Stoner and I are great friends outside of this. We've been friends for a while, and that didn't stop me going after him or him going after me, and that's completely fair enough. It's all game, and I think that's a testament to him as a player.
My thing is I now understanding the move on Nick more. I don't like how he handled that, because Stoner put Nick's name out there, said, Nick, I think you're going. I know this sucks.
No,
Nick
he didn't say no. He told me that he knew the 4 were voting for me. He said, I know they're voting for you. And to that, I will say, prior to that vote and prior to that conversation, we had told each other, whoever wins this immunity, like, get to the end. Like, we knew that it was probably going to be one of us. Do I think that it's a little bit shitty that he said my name? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, I probably would have did the same thing to him.
That's not my point. My point is, he did all of these things. He put your name out. He told you, and you guys discussed, Nick, like, I think you're going. And you spent all this time making this plan, and he egged you on. He put your name out there. He had no intention of keeping you around. I feel like that's a little shitty to someone that you were loyal to and someone you had good intentions for, to just egg them on. Own up to the move. Say you're in a good position. You need to go. Don't waste all that time. I think that would frustrate me.
I think with Nick, sorry to speak on your behalf, I think because you had just executed such a killer move with getting Derek out and the manipulation there, I think you scared us all. And when it got to the end, you scared us all at that point. And I think a lot of it was jury management. A lot of it was to keep you feeling good about him on your way out as well, which I don't think is a negative thing. But it was that's why I asked you, because it was a funny fact that you brought your name up and then proceeded to then make a plan to try and stop that. I did find that a bit odd, but I do understand it is in a weird way jury management to some extent.
I think it would. I think if it happened to me, it would go reverse. I think I would be upset if I found out afterwards, because I think proper jury management is to own your shit in that situation, because you put my name out there, especially because Nick, you said that you knew it was either you or Stoner. So why is Stoner working so hard to make sure it's not you?
I think did he say my name before or after immunity?
Before.
I think that he wasn't sure that he was going to win that immunity, and had he not won immunity, he needed a backup plan. Did he ever like push aggressively for my name after he won immunity, or was it already?
But
It was already set, I think, by that point.
And that's the point where he won immunity.
Pushing your name way before that.
Exactly, and he says, at this point he had won immunity. Now he's like, Nick is probably my number one. I'm gonna try and tell him anything to try and get him out of the situation.
But I don't think
so
you out of the situation.
Oh, he didn't. He didn't.
That's
and I don't. But at the end of the day, I'm somebody who is very, very like me and Sam. When we found out we were on this in the same cast, we had a very long conversation about how we want each other to get to the end, but at the end of the day, if it's me versus him, like we're gonna go for each other. And Sam, I think Stoner 100% understands that. I'm the type of player that like, if I have the means and I don't know that I'm 100% safe, I'm gonna go after anybody who's even remotely close enough. Like, I know you hate to hear this, Kennedy, and I think the only difference is I wouldn't do it before immunity, because like Brian, I don't like setting any plans until immunity happens. I think Stoner's the type of player that like he needs to make sure that he is good at all times. And in doing so, it did screw me over. But at the end of the day, I don't think he had any malintention for that. I don't think he was doing it to be an asshole or doing it to just stab me in the back for the sake of stabbing me in the back. I think he just genuinely needed to ensure that he was still here at 5.
I can also say, sorry, Kennedy, do you want to go first? Sorry.
My only thing, so just for like previous things, I've hosted Nick. I've hosted a jury roundtable where Nick was on the jury and I was production. And Nick, I think it's very similar to Julia, but you didn't.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly.
You weren't happy with Julia, but you love Stoner, and so that was my thing. Like
I think the difference
very against Julia.
The difference with that is I played the entire game with Julia from start to finish.
It's a different format.
I played half of this game, not even with Stoner.
Reference, Nick, they were in an alliance. My game's a different format. You're with everybody, kind of.
And I got sick.
Yeah, they had this majority alliance that they worked through the whole game. Nick blatantly said, cut me at 4, I'll be okay. They took Nick out at, I want to say 7th. Wasn't necessarily a good move. They could have taken 6. Yeah. They could have taken out Nick at a later point, but Nick was definitely in a good position in the game because the person who got 2nd also had good intentions, was Nick, was on the other side of the game. But she very much got ridiculed for taking out Nick and acting like she didn't know about it or all of these. That was kind of my thing. Just
if it was somebody like Derek or Sam sitting in the end, I'd probably have very similar thoughts than I had with Julia, because I had worked with them the whole point. At no point in this game, and had I not known about like the Josh vote or anything, at no point did they give me an indication that they were going to stab me in the back. And to do it, it would have felt like for the sake of stabbing me in the back. Where with Stoner, I saw the game he played beforehand. I saw the game he was playing now, and being able to be out of the game from 6 to now, seeing everybody that came in after, it makes sense. If if like Jester was fifth, that wouldn't make sense to me. That would feel stupid to me. But the fact that it was Sam and Brian makes the most sense to me, because I think not even after me, I think Brian and Sam had just as good of a chance to win this game as anybody sitting in that final six. And
Yeah.
I think that he, at that point, after losing CJ, it was more of a, I need to survive and I need to do it in the cleanest way possible, and less of a, I need to dominate this game.
And
Yeah.
I really think that,
Uh,
no offense to Stoner, because I do think he played a really good game, but I think his odds of winning go significantly lower if he's sitting next to anybody else on jury. Like
I
anybody
agree.
else on jury.
I 100% agree.
Stoner and CJ played really closely
Well-
together. CJ was able to flip him pre-merge, and Stoner would have done anything CJ wanted. I really think that Stoner needed, I think it's good and bad about Stoner's game, because I think he needed to bring who he brought, but I also think that anyone else would have beat him. So it shows that he was aware, but it also shows that he might not have played the best game. But again, it's out of the two, not out of the jury.
But
I think it would have been. I think it would have been
I
a
wanna
battle.
touch
I don't
on-
think it would have been. I don't think it would have been. I don't think anyone else would have beat him as much. I think it would have been a more tough battle. I think it would have been a closer vote.
Oh, it
than
would have been.
I presume it's going to be.
Fine.
I
Still think. Sorry.
my biggest thing about these games is everybody barring Kelly has played these games before. This is Kelly's first game, so I'm not going to group Kelly into that. Every single person here should know the best two players do not make it to the end in any situation. So for me to compare Stoner's game to somebody in this jury is a bit unfair, because we all know that Stoner probably didn't play the best game. I mean, Stoner didn't play the best strategic game, didn't really play the best social game, and definitely didn't play the best physical game. But the people that did, or that would have had they made the end, are here. And he took them out. And Jester took them out. I'm not going to just say Stoner was behind. They both took them out. And so at the end of the day, I think it's less of who played the best game out of the cast, and it's more of who played the better game out of the two. And that's why whenever I'm comparing one to the other, I'm comparing Stoner to Jester and Jester to Stoner. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how Stoner stacks up against Derek or Kelly or Brian or Sam. It's just how he stacks up against Jester, because I'm not voting Stoner against Kelly, Stoner against Derek, Stoner against Sam. I'm voting between Stoner and Jester.
Hey guys, are we good on Stoner here? Or can we move on to Jester soon? If there's any last words, speak now or forever hold your peace, because we are dragging on with Stoner.
I haven't said anything strategic wise yet.
Go ahead.
Mine's gonna be short. So, I just want to touch base. Basically what Candy said. I guess the only part I see negative about Stoner's game, I don't really consider him a follower, but when he kind of latched on with me, with the bad swap, I was the one that convinced him to flip on Jackson. And then I told him once we got to merge, obviously I got him to vote Kendall out as well. And then when we got to merge, I told him about the Fab Five when I was with him. If we get to merge, it's not the same as it was before the swap. So to an extent, Kennedy, I do really see what you're saying, Kennedy, about that. I don't know if he followed or he just didn't want to be the one to claim the moves. Also with the Josh vote, obviously I brought that up to Sam because everybody was wanting to vote Stevie out that night. I was like, well, let's just split the votes. He's probably got an idol. Let's make him feel comfortable. And let's get a big threat out of the game, because obviously if he makes it any further in the game, there's a chance he's going to win it. So, I mean, Stoner, I guess on the negative side, I'm going to want to hear what moves he actually takes credit for, because I don't know what he's done since I've left, but I know before it was basically just, he was talked into something and he he did have to execute with the Jackson and the Kendall by making them feel safe and making Kendall flip instead of going to rocks. But just for the fact that he was willing to go to rocks and we had just met, like that speaks volumes for me. But yeah, I mean, as far as big moves, like I would like to hear what he did after I left as far as big moves that he can actually claim for himself. That's it.
Not this, Megan.
Alrighty, sorry, I just had to announce, I'm eating Fun Dip, but, I did the Josh vote. Yes, it was me. It was none of you, it was actually me.
Okay.
I put telepathic waves into all of your brains to vote Josh out.
Glad we cleared that up.
So yeah, now that that's established, any last burning, if they're not burning, you have to absolutely fucking say it. Comments about Stoner's strategic game, going once, going twice. Alrighty, let's go to Jester's strategic game.
Okay, I know I'm talking a lot, but I
And
have
give
some.
everyone a chance to talk. Sorry, Kennedy.
Take a
Give
shot,
everyone a
take a
chance,
shot.
an equal chance to talk as well in this. At
Am I
you know who
doing
you
that?
are, people.
Am I not doing that?
Take a
You're
shot
fine.
because I know I talk a lot.
Wait, no, I'm actually gonna cry. Am I like hurting people? Like,
No,
just-
you're fine. You're
The
fine.
people who
Let's,
know that they're talking too much know that they're talking too much. You're good.
let's just go around in the circle before we start conversation.
no, it was about Jester and it was a really important thing.
Go.
Like,
You can go first.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
You're good.
Okay. There was a point. It was either CJ's vote or no, it was Derek's vote. And I told Jester, I said, Jester, this is your chance to make a move and to have it be something that you can say you did. We can pick a different name other than Nick, because at the time it was Nick. I said, Jester, this is the chance to make the move. And Jester could not commit. And I said, Jester, you need to speak up. You need to actually make a move. Otherwise, this jury is not going to respect you. Pick something and tell everyone and stand up for what you're doing. And Jester couldn't do it. And that was really frustrating because obviously you don't want to give your cards, you don't want to anything. But Jester, the whole time, at least with that vote, couldn't give me a name until it was in the tribal and everyone was fighting. But I told Jester, because I was really big on jury management in that live night. I knew I was going. I said, Jester, you need to make a move, and he couldn't do it. I thought that was important to bring up. I will try not to
Take
talk.
back off that. And with frustrating things that Jester did in terms of strategic play, whenever we'd come up with a decision when it came to the vote, it would be we'd all come up with a name to vote, and that was all fine. And he would very often be like, I'm just going to vote this way because I don't want this person to be mad at me. And that was frustrating, because it was always him that wanted to vote a different way because he was trying to do the jury management, which I suppose is good because it shows he was thinking about jury management a bit. But it was just very frustrating when you're trying to work as part of a team, and when his vote is important, it is annoying at times. But saying that, as I said before, he played very well strategically when it came to hiding behind shields. There'll always been someone that he's working with who's a bigger threat than him, or a bigger perceived threat than him, which got him further in the game, because he was never really seen as a big threat, and when he was protected by people.
Okay, so I'm gonna. Sorry, go, Derek.
No,
want
you
Derek
go.
to
You go.
first.
You go first.
Okay, I love Jester because obviously I was working with the information that I had about the person that I was with. So under all those circumstances and with all the information that I had, I was like, okay, I really like the guy. I'm gonna work with him. But I'm gonna tell you guys, it is not the easiest thing working with Jester sometimes. The amount of times where you have to tell him, to be honest, you don't have to lie about this. You have to be honest with them, just be forward. And he's like, okay, Brian, you have to go first. And to a certain extent, because my game is to be a tool for different people, whether I'm your spy, whether I'm your therapist, whether I'm your confidant, whether I'm your rival, whatever it is, I wanted to be a tool. For Jester, I felt like I was a therapist for most of the time. And it was really difficult because the people who help him the most are the people he wants to flip on the most. And I was like, Jester, this is really bad timing. You really shouldn't be doing this. And it came to my realization later on that maybe he's playing strategically where he's opening moves all the time. But at the same time, I just felt like Jester, this is getting really messy because you keep talking even before we already know who's safe. And 2 or 3 times he wanted to target the person who eventually became safe. That's Nick, and then Stoner, and then Nick. It's like, see, you shouldn't have said this. Now your name is out there because you kept talking even before it was necessary. So, I mean, I love the guy, but if I'm going to be honest, I felt like he played a game where a lot of other people could claim he did this because I was telling him to do it. So he did not find a way to establish independence or autonomy. And that is the problem with Jester's game. Like he did not find a way to actually establish himself, like separate himself. Like that was Nick's farewell message. That was Kennedy's farewell message. Nearly everyone who went out, they're like, play for yourself, play for yourself. And he never, I don't know if he never got the opportunity or he never took the opportunity. Those are two different stories. I'm done.
Yeah. So I think that I don't think Jester played too well, personally. I think what we kind of said that he did well, I think Stoner also did well, if not better. I think that Jester was the type of person, from my experience at least, where he was going to go with the last person he was on call with, kind of thing. Whoever made him feel most secure last minute. I believe that's why he was contemplating voting for me a lot of that day. But I had a lot of calls with a lot of y'all, to be honest, except for Sam and Stoner. Sad face. And I'm trying to remember where I was going with that. Him doing the pity votes, I want to vote this way. It never bothered me in the game because I knew that it would catch up to him eventually. I knew that whether it was him being taken out because he was trying to be too much of a jury threat, or him making it to the end and not getting the respect that he was literally trying to gain by doing it, I think that it made people more frustrated than it was doing good for him. That's all I really have to say.
I have 2 statements and a question for the jury. Statement 1, there are people who play this game, look at who they can beat, and take them to the end. And there are people who play to get to the finale. Jester plays to get to the finale. Jester does not care who he's sitting at the end with. Jester does not care if he's up against the biggest threat or the least threatening. He plays to get to the end. Number 2, Jester does not play for himself unless he absolutely has to. And for that, I will go to me tricking Derek into saying Jester's name and then running to Jester and Brian and telling them that Derek said his name. It wasn't until, like, Brian refused to hop on a call with me. I don't know if he was on a call with somebody else, but Jester was on that call. It was not until I told Derek that told Jester that Derek said his name that he was even willing to think about voting for Derek. Because 30 minutes before Tribal started, Brian and Derek hopped on a call with me and told me, I'm sorry, I'm voting you out.
Me and Brian?
Sorry, Jester and Brian.
Okay, yeah, I was like, I don't recall that, but
Hopped on a call with me and we're like, I'm sorry. Because like that entire day, Brian was like, or like the day before, Brian was like ready, and then he sat down and thought about it and was like, I don't think I'll be able to vote with you. I have to vote you out, and was very upfront and honest with me, and so was Jester. I think that Derek thought that he was in danger of not being in the finale. Jester thought that he was in danger of not being in the finale and flipped to voting Derek because that was his only option. Because even at that point, I think Brian wasn't even willing to flip on Derek, because Brian's very much the type of player that I'm sticking to what I said I was going to do, which I fucking admire, which is why I think you would have won this whole fucking thing if you made it to the end. Where Jester's kind of the opposite of that. Jester's somebody who sees danger and runs as far away from it. Brian sees danger and faces it head on, regardless of what the outcome is. And I can't respect a coward in a game. By a show of hands, who thinks Jester's a follower? Okay, so pretty much everyone. I think that, but like the difference here is people were on the fence about Stoner being a follower because he was more of a free agent. Jester is very much somebody who clings to people and has them take him as far as he can. Whereas Stoner is somebody who goes with people and takes them as far as he needs. I think there is no strategic bone in Jester's. This is, and when I say all these things, I say it as somebody who has played these games for 2.5 years, 3 years, question mark, doesn't matter. I say this with my whole chest. Jester has no strategic bone in his body. Jester's strategy is to do whatever whoever he's closest with is doing, unless it goes against him. Jester is to sit there and talk about Jester's strategy is insulting to the rest of the players in this game, in my opinion. I think out of the merge, Jester is probably on the bottom of my list of strategic players, and that's under Josh, who literally got out with 3 idols in his pocket. I'm trying to say this without being too mean, because let's face it, when I'm on, anybody who's seen me in a jury roundtable knows I'm a fucking bitch. I don't see any merit to his game on a strategic level. I see merit to his game on a physical and social level 100%. I see no merit to his game on a strategic level. I think he hid behind Brian until Brian left, and then he hid behind Kelly. Does anybody disagree?
I think that was a bit much. And I think that we don't know his game. And I think strategically hiding behind people is a thing. He won the first two immunities. He had to. He was able to get himself out of those. But
I think that's his physical game and not a strategic game. I think on a physical level, Brian, correct me if I am wrong here, did Jester just go with whatever you wanted?
Okay, so at that point, it was more like Jester was doing what the 4 wanted at the early stage.
Yeah.
It was the Rainbow Warriors, and then, but there's a quiet part of Jester where it's always like, we have to plan. This is the strategy part. We have to plan for away Brian, where if this group of 4 breaks, there's 3 of us, and that's either going to be Kelly or Stoner. So to that credit, yes, there's a little bit of sense of independence that eventually he wants to break the 4, and it's going to be with either Kelly or Stoner. I really just wished he did not mouth off those words super early, because his timing is really bad. Because eventually Derek found out, Sam found out, and was like, oh, if he did not say these things, there would be no doubts. But yeah.
I also think, so sorry to pick it, I know I haven't spoken yet, but there's 2 quick things. I just want to piggyback something of what Kennedy said about him winning the immunity at the start. He knew his name was out there. He knew he was going to be in a bit of trouble. The fact that he pushed hard and won that first immunity shows that it was strategic, because he knew that his name was out there. And that was a testament to a social game and a strategic game in that respect. Something else Kennedy said in the message chat, I just want to reference. If Jester had won that final competition, put your hand up if you think he would have taken Kelly.
Oh, I do think he would have taken Kelly.
I think he plays against the finale, but I also think he would have made the smart decision in that respect, and the most strategic decision there.
Kelly, do you think he would have taken you?
I don't know. I mean, he told me that he would have taken me like previous to the challenge, but then when they were doing the challenge, they said to each other that they were taking each other. So
that's what
he wanted to earn the spot, and
I didn't raise my hand.
I just don't know. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kelly.
I just don't know if I think like tomorrow I'll see if I believed him or not. I don't know if I really believe what he was telling me. I think that he didn't want to vote Derek out when somebody brought his name up, because he knew I didn't want to. He knew Sam didn't want to at that time, and he didn't want to make us mad, you know. And if he flipped at that point, like he loses me and he loses Sam, So, and those were numbers that I think he was counting on, or shields, or whatever you want to call it. So it wasn't smart for him to take Derek out that earlier. But when, of course, tribal happened, things change, and of course he's going to vote him out then. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, I didn't want to raise my hand. That wasn't me saying like yes or no. I wanted to hear Kelly's perspective before I like decided on that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know.
So in the Josh vote, it was Josh or Stevie. In the Stevie vote, it was Stevie or I don't remember who.
Kelly.
Oh, I'm pretty sure it was like Yunnan Stevie. In the CJ vote, it was CJ or who?
You.
DJ or you.
I didn't get any votes though. Who got votes?
No.
You got two.
I think I had votes. I received
Kelly
two.
got votes
That was when
instead.
it was Kelly. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
In the Derek vote, it was Derek or Jester. Does that say more about Derek or Jester?
Derek.
Okay. In the me vote, it was me or Jester. Does that say more about me or Jester?
You.
You.
Okay. In the Nick vote, who was it? Nick or Stoner?
Me or Kelly. At the time Stoner won immunity, me or
Yeah.
Kelly.
Okay, Jester got out of it. In the Sam vote,
It was
what-
me or Stoner.
It
Stoner.
was Sam or Stoner, yeah,
Jester got out of it. In the Brian vote, it was Brian or who?
or Kelly at that point.
Or
yeah.
me. Yeah.
Jester got out of it. And Kelly, it came down to the final three.
Yeah.
That middle section, that live night chaotic part of the game, he was able to get out of it. All of you, especially in my vote, Brian, you gave me that extra vote to take him out. And it was worth keeping him around. Was it because it was worth keeping him around, or was it because you needed me gone? Because there had to have been some merit to keeping him around.
Okay, so can I explain why that extra vote happened? Because a lot of people
I would
were like,
appreciate that, but I was trying not to make it about that. It was just more like because Jester survived. Like there was value to keeping Jester. That was my point. But
what
I
happened that night was, it was so scary how Nick pulled a massive move on Derek. And in my head, what happens here is, if someone scrambles enough a tribal in a situation where Sam did not know where Stoner's vote was really going, Kelly did not know where Sam's vote, like there's a lot of people not knowing where everyone's vote was going. And in my head, if Kennedy scrambles enough, my plan would fall on the floor and it would die down. So my best move is to give Kelly an assurance that she has enough votes. I mean, give Kennedy the assurance that she has enough votes and she's not going to scramble. I'm going to be late for tribal because I'm going to call Stoner. I'm going to call this person. I'm going to tell everyone Kennedy's the vote. Don't panic. She's assured that she's not going. And I was doing that because Jester at that point was like my number one. And I was at a situation to where I knew for a fact that I can't beat Kelly in the end. I'm like, not Kelly, Kennedy. So, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm trash with names. I knew for a fact that Kennedy would give me a run for my money in terms of challenges. And it would get scary. And if Kennedy even brings me to the end, it's a situation where Kennedy brought Brian to the end. It's a situation where I'm gonna look really, really weak. And I'm like, oh, I have to make this move. And I'm so sorry, Kennedy. Like, I'm so sorry. This is gonna be really, really bad. But let's still be friends after. So I had to lie, give her the vote, and then calm down. You're going home. That was the moment. I'm so sorry, Kennedy.
Can I play devil's advocate really quick
Mhm.
here, because like I said, in these, Kennedy has witnessed it, I'm normally a huge bitch. I don't mean to say those things as just, first off, I don't mean to say these things as Jester as a person. I'm looking strictly as Jester as a player. Did Jester get out of those votes because of his strategic prowess, or did Jester get out of those votes because he was never a threat?
I saw Jester as a big threat in the game. I saw Jester as someone who people were trying to protect. I saw Jester as someone who had a good read on who was voting for who and was able to flip when he needed to the point where my pitch to people was you need to get out Jester because he's in a good position. To the point where, Nick, you agreed. You were going to vote Jester over Derek because Jester was the bigger threat. And so I don't know how we can say Jester's a threat and then all of a sudden at the end be like, well, Jester doesn't have a strategic bone in his body.
Is Jester, but I thought Jester was a threat for probably different reasons you did. Is Jester a threat because he's somebody that let me reword. Is Jester a threat because he is a vote for somebody else and could possibly win this game? Or is Jester a threat because he's a vote for somebody else that are going to drag him to the end of this game?
See, but that slot was filled. Like, Kelly, I've already told you that I respect your game and that I'm proud of you for moving things. But that was Kelly's spot in everybody's mind. That wasn't Jester. Like, I feel like people are kind of forgetting the fact that Jester played the game and Jester navigated things. There were always people higher than Jester and there were always people lower than Jester. And Jester was able to.
I disagree. If there was anybody lower than Jester, if there was anybody lower than Jester, even at this point, I'm talking like this point in the game, why is Kelly here? Why is Sam here? Why is Brian here? Why am I here?
Jester didn't choose for Kelly to be here. Stoner did.
But what I'm saying is, if like we are all here, why is Jester there? Or why for like the way I'm thinking of, if it's between Jester and Kelly, if Jester was higher than Kelly, why is Jester still in the game? If it's during Brian's vote, if it's between Brian and Kelly, then obviously Brian, Kelly, and Stoner did not see Jester as somebody they could beat at the end, because at that point in the game, you're looking to take out people that you think can beat you in the end. Brian, at any point in this game, did you think Jester could beat you?
Can we go to a show of hands of like who thought Jester was a threat? How many hands did we get? I'm on my phone. Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to say that I did not view Jester as a threat, even though I knew he was talking about me. I was getting word of it. Even though I protected him during like the beginning portion of the game, it was because I thought that he would be an easy beat. It wasn't necessarily he was my one way to the end, because I was very happy to go to the end with Sam as well. But I know that it's not ever always my choice kind of thing. And so I wanted to make sure like Jester was an option for me to go to the end with as well, if I didn't get to go with Sam.
And that's the point I'm making. The point I'm making is,
for me, my experience, how I feel, but that's everybody feels different. That's also kind of
the point I'm trying to make is Jester didn't get to the end because of his strategic ability. Jester got to the end because he was social enough to get to the end, and people knew that they could beat him.
But as someone who often plays a social game with strategic little underneath that people don't always see until the end, I gotta give him some credit, because social games can still be valid games. And I feel
I agree.
But then why did you be like, Jester doesn't have a strategic bone in his body? We all play that.
I don't think he does. I don't think he does. I think Jester is a very well
to attack him.
Okay.
That's not an attack on him. That's an attack on the game that he played.
It's an attack on his game.
That's an attack on the way he played this game.
Okay,
did anybody else?
That's probably on me. I probably should have worded that different. This is not an attack on how he plays all games. This is how I'm focusing on this game, the game that I am voting between him and Stoner to win.
Okay, maybe this is how it really looks like. What it looks like is Jester played the strategic game, but the problem is right now we are trying to compare, and even as jurors, we can't take ourselves away completely. And if we compare all these people in the jury who are really, really strong strategic players, Jester kind of fades in comparison. So if we're trying to be a little bit hasty or trying to be a little bit callous with our words, not that I'm calling anyone callous, when you get carried away with what you're saying, sometimes you can almost cross that line where you totally discredit him. But yeah, he did have a little bit of planning every now and then, a little bit of let me put people in front of me every now and then. It just wasn't as a big of a standout, because these are things that we see every now and then.
And I'm also saying this before he gets the chance to plead his case. And I'm saying this from my perspective as a player who played this game, only my perspective as a player who played this game, before he gets to tell me anything. It's not me attacking him. It's not anything of the sort. It's just me saying, from my perspective, it did not look like he had a strategic bone in his body. And he might completely change my thought on that at FTC. I'm saying right now, in this moment, that's my thoughts on it.
Is there anyone that hasn't given thoughts on Jester's strategic game yet? That would like to give their opinions? Alrighty, do we have any like final? Bye, Brian. Thank you for joining. That's
Bye,
why I
Brian.
did social and strategic first, in case people had to leave, because the last one's, I don't know, I guess not as not usually as long of a discussion. Not that I'm saying it's not as important, because that's on y'all. But anyway, do we have any final burning thoughts, last comments for Jester strategic game?
I just wanted to say that the hard part of the strategic portion for Jester for me is that Stoner and Jester did play very strategic, similarly strategic games, but we've already kind of discussed, and I think all have come to most of the same conclusion that Stoner seemed to do it a little bit better. He wasn't seen as a follower, he was seen as a free agent. And I guess when comparing the two, that's why I have the opinions of Jester that I do, because I think Stoner did it better in the strategic portion by miles.
Alrighty, if that's it on that, then we can move to the last portion, physical game. So we'll start, well, just to give you guys some statistics, I guess. So the person who won the most individual immunities in this game was Stoner with 3. And then the only other people to win individual immunities were the other 3 who won 2 each, which were Nick, Jester, and Brian. So Stoner won 3 individual immunities and Jester won 2. And physical games is not just obviously about individual immunities, of course, but just wanted to give you guys the stats if you were confused. And so now you guys can just talk about both of their physical games and how you think that related to, you know, how they got to this point, how you think that helps or hurts their games. Anyone can start with anyone.
We've touched upon Jester's physical game in terms of he won when he needed to, when his name was going around the most. Apart from obviously live night. Yeah, I don't think both of them they won when they needed to. They didn't. It's difficult to judge based on your physical game because they won immunities, which a lot of us didn't do. But yeah, it's a funny one. I don't think that's as important in the long run as social and strategic for sure.
I think that in terms of when they won, they both won absolutely when they needed to. Yeah, physical game's really hard to talk about because it's like they both started on Medea. It's not like one was on Tapaza, one was on Medea. They were both on Medea. Stoner lost, I guess, 2 more competitions than Jester did, if I'm correct. Because, or no, 1 more because he had 1 extra individual immunity.
Yeah, but he beat him in the wall set too. So
like physically, in terms of physical competition, they matched up similarly. It's just like when they won their immunities, I guess.
I'm going to chime in. And I think that when you win immunity is a big deal. And again, this is my perspective. I could be completely wrong. I threw a lot of the challenges in the beginning of Merge. The first challenge that I really, really tried and that I really wanted to win was the round that I went because I knew. And while, yes, we touched on that Jester may have needed to win these immunities in the beginning portions of the Merge, I guess I want to ask Sam, because I think that you would probably give me the best answer. Even if Jester wasn't immune, do you think he truly would have gone? Because in my opinion, we still would have gotten our way. Even I didn't want Jester to go. I didn't necessarily want Josh to go, but I was totally okay with it because everybody else did. Do you think that Jester would have gone if he didn't win the first 2 immunities?
No, I think it would have been more of a difficult round. It wouldn't have been as clear cut. But I don't.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been as clear cut for sure. Yes.
We had the numbers there to make sure that Jester was safe.
Yeah, sorry, I'm cutting you off. I can't speak to Stoners, because I was out by the time he was winning these immunities. But I do think that in the grand scheme of things, I think not showing your cards, I think throwing challenges in the beginning, so you're not making yourself a threat. We knew that Jester won those first 2 challenges back to back. And while it didn't make me any more threatened by him as a player, I didn't want him getting into a scenario where he would win his way to the end, because that would give him just extra points that I don't need him to have. That's convoluted. That's kind of my little tidbit on it. I think because Stoner won later challenges, it doesn't necessarily means that he was throwing earlier on in the game, but I think that winning a later challenge looks a lot better than winning an earlier one.
I mean, looking at like even my vote, like everybody who was in this game on my vote that's in this call said if I had won that immunity, Stoner was going home, or if Stoner gave me that immunity, he was going home. So I think Stoner 100% needed that immunity, because if I got it, like obviously if anybody else got it, I was probably still going home. But if I won that immunity, he was next to go. And I think Sam, do you think at 5, if you win that immunity, Stoner goes? Like, do you think that was an
Yeah.
immunity that he needed?
I would have said if he hadn't have won that, he would have.
Stoner did not
Yeah.
win Final 5 immunity.
I was going to say he
Or
didn't win that.
Final four.
I-
Kelly,
I-
do you think Final 4, if Stoner hadn't won that immunity, he would still be in the game?
I think I still would have. I think I would have stuck with my Brian vote.
Do you think Jester would have?
I don't know. I can say that, but I think so. Like, I mean, he always asked me what I wanted to do, and he always did whatever I told him that I wanted to do. So I have to guess that if I told him that I wanted Brian out before Stoner, then I think he will do that. Because I think Brian was going to be harder to beat for either of us at the end than Stoner. So yeah.
I think that speaks a lot, but I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut because I'm mean. And that's not a I love you, Kennedy. That wasn't at you at all. I love you. I know I'm
My thing is, didn't you bring up that Stoner
I
was, like-
think
Oh, okay. Okay.
I think there's a connection delay potentially.
On me? Is
No,
it
I
me?
think
I think
no.
I'm CJ.
Oh,
was CJ.
okay. Didn't you say that Stoner was like considering giving you immunity? Like you said, that was a point that you brought up before.
Stoner would have given me immunity if he knew he was 100% safe. I think he didn't feel comfortable enough to give me immunity.
But like, why would you even consider? I don't know. Like, I feel like that's kind of on physical game. Like, you earned that shit. Why would you give it away? Why would you even consider giving it away? I don't know. And I don't know if that's more of a physical game thing, but it's about him winning an immunity and potentially. I think if Stoner does give and stays, I significantly lose points. He loses points in my head. But I don't know if that's necessarily physical. I guess I don't know. I am one of those people that if someone were to win out the end of the game and they didn't do anything, they don't get my vote. Like, a physical game is not a big thing for me unless you have other aspects to follow it up.
Same.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the thing. Who was it? Spencer? Was it Spencer who like won out the end of his season but didn't win because he won out the end of his season? Like, it's that kind of thing. So, and it's the end of the
But I
game. You're
think
not throw an immunity comp, but like, that's why I don't think physical is as important in this specific game as it could be potentially in others, because I don't think either I think they needed them when they got them, but just because Stoner has one more doesn't really do anything for me.
Alrighty, do we have any last comments on physical game? If not, I have like one last bit that I do want from you guys before we end the roundtable. So I just kind of want to hear from you all, like what you think, basically what you need to hear from each of the finalists at the final tribal council for you to want to vote for them. So basically, like, what are you looking for? What do you feel like you're lacking from their games that you would need filled in for you to consider voting for them? What kind of things are you hoping they present at final tribal council? And that will hopefully help you guys base your questions as you all are formulating them before tomorrow night.
It's a difficult one because this is the strangest FTC I've ever been on jury for, where I don't know about everyone else, but I think it's a foregone conclusion who I think is going to win, which I've never had before. I don't know. I need to just explain the moves they've made. I would need Jester to really explain moves that he made independent of Brian, independent of Derek and I, independent of Stoner, and just Stoner to explain the reasoning for his flip flopping at certain points. But it's a difficult one because I don't think anything that really could be said would change the outcome. But I could be wrong. Could be majorly wrong. Please disagree with me if you feel that I'm wrong there.
I think a lot would need to be explained for me to sway my vote, and by a lot, I mean like a fucking lot would need to be explained.
I
For
will
me.
say that I don't need a lot explained, especially as I kind of have a feeling as, you know, how I'm going to vote. I do want to remain open-minded. I think that Jester's biggest opportunity for me is if he can present that he had more agency in his game than we seem to feel like he does. And even if he's lying, there's part of the final tribal council where not everybody truly knows what's going on. If Jester can convince me he did moves purposefully, I will definitely be a lot more open-minded to want to vote for him. But as it stands, I've made my opinions kind of clear. Yeah.
I again am bringing something up that 3 of you won't know about, and I'm so sorry, but I promise I'll explain it. The second game I ever played was called YouTube Survivor. I played a game called YouTube Survivor, and the final 2 was Sam and Ollie, and Nick was on production. And we went into the jury roundtable with everyone praising Ollie for how great Ollie's game was. And guess who won the season?
Sammy
Sam.
boy.
Because Sam was able to own his shit
Yes.
and tell us what he did. I think the only difference is Jester has a very significant uphill battle, something that we have not talked about on this thing, something we will not talk about on this call.
On this recording.
And as much as, yeah, on the recording, as much as I would like to be able to put that aside, and as the player in my head is going to give him that opportunity to speak in all of these different things, I do think Jester has the potential to earn some votes, because I think Jester could sell what Jester did and give the pitch. Sam, like, looking back, everyone was like, damn, Ollie robbed, but like Sam, that doesn't mean Sam didn't deserve the win. You know, say Jester wins here. Was Stoner robbed? Yeah, Stoner played a good game, but Jester still earned the win. Like, and I think it's different because YTS, Ollie like won out the last couple, like Ollie won the last like 4 comps in a row or something like that. Like won out the end of the game. And so it was a little bit different, but like, I'm just saying, a lot of the final tribals that I've gone to and participated in, there was literally one where I played a perfect game in a Big Brother game, was never nominated at all once. And because I won a battle back or some shit like that. No, it wasn't even a battle back. They just didn't like me or something. I didn't win the game. Like, a lot of times shit changes at final tribal. And I think we all need to somewhat keep an open mind. Again, uphill battle, outside things.
Yeah.
But
To add on to that, I also played a Big Brother game in the same series where we're placement twins, because where all the jury members stated I played the perfect end game, but because I got voted out and won a battle back, I didn't win. So there are definitely factors to certain things. There are other factors.
I was in that one too.
I want to talk to you all more on the Ponderosa call, but in terms of just their games, I do feel like it'll be an uphill battle for Jester on a game level. But if he pulls out the stops, then I think he has a chance.
No, I just want to reiterate one thing. What I said about him not having much of a chance, or I think it pretty much said, isn't based on what I found out coming into thing. It's based on the games and the games that they've played. I feel it's very, very evident personally right now who's played the better game, and it needs to, as I say, as Kennedy said, a lot needs to be explained, a lot needs to be owned, which I'm not privy to, for it to change my mind based on how Jester and John have both played the game. Yeah.
think for me, I just want to hear from Gesture what he did outside, like our duo or outside, yeah, the Saida for. Just want to hear what he did outside, what he was telling me. And Stoner, I think, I don't know, I just want to hear more about his game or why he went this way or the other, just to be like, to hear their side, because we're all saying like our perspective of their game, but I just want to hear like theirs, like how do you think your game was and why did you did this, and when you were saying this to me, what were you saying to the other to other people. So that's all I want to hear, just to, but I'm open-minded. I'm not 100% sure who I'm voting for, so it's gonna be important.
Okay, do we have any other final comments on the things that anyone would like to see from either finalist tomorrow night? Okay, with that, I think that pretty much concludes our jury roundtable. It was a lovely, long one, but super fun and informative, and I appreciate everyone being respectful, giving everyone turns, and being respectful to the finalists. Remember, the finale is 8 p.m., starting at 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. We'll, of course, start with speeches, go into questions. You guys are picking your order, and then final speeches, and then the vote. If you are not going to be there tomorrow night for Final Tribal Council, or if you think you're going to have to leave in the middle of it, please let production know in your prod chats and tell us who you would vote for. It's okay if you need to leave in the middle, you need to send us your vote or whatever, that's fine too. But just make sure that if you're not going to be there at all, you send us who you'd like to vote for, because we want every jury to vote for a winner. I think, yeah, we're figuring out the order of y'all for questions. So please, in the Ponderosa chat, figure out what order you guys are going to ask questions. And I think that's it. Thank you guys for doing Jury Roundtable tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.